everyone, it's Ali, and if you would like to know how I made 51 cards from a 6x6 paper pad, then you have definitely clicked on the right video. I get lots of requests on my channel to do videos with minimal supplies or more affordable supplies, so that was what I had in mind when I was picking out the supplies for this video. I've pulled out this All Is Bright paper pad from Paper Addicts, which retails for £1, but you can use any Christmas paper pad, like literally anything will work with these designs. I've also got a set of stamps. I've just picked a set that has sentiments, elements of different sizes in it, so this one's really versatile, but again, you can use essentially any Christmas stamp set that you've got as long as it's got both sentiments and elements in. I've also got 2 different colours of inks and a stamping acrylic block. I'm going to be using some ribbon in this video as well. I ran out of this one really quickly, so I'll pull in some other ones, but you can use anything you like. I've got 3 kinds of adhesive. I've got glue dots, double-sided tape and liquid glue, but to be honest you can just use your preferred adhesive. And then I'm also going to be making my own card bases and mats in this video, so I've pulled out some cream, red and green card from my stash, but this is all just kind of basic, fairly cheap cardstock that you can get anywhere, and you can obviously use any colours. I just picked these because they match my paper pad. So the first thing I'm going to do is make all of my card bases, and what I'm doing, I'm using A4 cardstock in this video, so I'm cutting them in half. I'm doing some cards that are portrait and some that are landscape fold, so I just essentially cut my cardstock in half and then scored it so it's a quarter of a sheet. If you use 8.5 by 11 cardstocks, I know a lot of my followers are in the US and you guys don't use A4 paper sizes there, then you just have to adapt it for the size of cardstock you're going to be using. All of the card designs I'm going to use today can easily be adapted to most sizes, so I'm going to make all my card bases up front just so I have them all ready to go. Cream ones, green ones and red ones. Some of them are side fold and some of them are top fold, and they're all roughly the same size. Just so I'm a little bit more prepared, these are the designs I'm going to do today. I've drawn out 9 different designs that I'm going to kind of use as inspiration for my different cards. While all my cards are going to be different in this video, they're not all going to be completely different, so there's going to be 9 kind of styles I'm going to do. The last thing I want to do before I get started is write down my measurements for my cards. So I quite often make different sizes of cards, so I always like to look at the measurements and see exactly what my mats are going to be. I usually like to do a card front with an 1/8 of an inch mat, and then sometimes I'll do one with a 1/16 of an inch mat. So I like to write these down beforehand and work out all the measurements because I'm not very good at maths. I used to be good at maths a long time ago, it feels like, but now I just don't have a head for numbers. I can't retain them, so I found that the easiest way for me to get around this is to just write them all down, so I've got them to refer to. Let's get on with the first design. So the first design, we're going to cut a card front from pattern paper, and that's going to be just slightly smaller than our card base. Then I'm going to stamp out this ho ho ho, which is going to be our sentiment on this card. I'm going to stamp it out twice, and then I can just use that one for another one of these cards. I'm going to make these little ho 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 sentiments into almost like a little banner flag. I'm going to turn it into kind of a tag on the front of the card. So I'm going to cut the bottom of these into a fishtail with my scissors, and these are my favourite little fussy cutting scissors. They're great. Next I'm going to tie a bow. Now I couldn't figure out how to tie a bow, so I watched a video here on YouTube of somebody who showed me how to do it about 60 times, and now I can do it. I'm very pleased to say. So I've tied my bow, and then I'm going to add another bit of ribbon underneath. So this is going to, I'm going to actually use less ribbon doing it this way rather than trying to faff around tying a bow on the front of my card. I'm just going to stick the bow on top. Look, it's so much easier to do it that way. I'm going to use a glue dot, which is my preferred adhesive for attaching bows, and then I'm also going to use a glue dot on this banner. So I've stuck a glue dot on the top and a glue dot underneath, and then I'm using that to make sure the ribbon sticks to the front of the card. This is such a cool hack that I saw in someone else's video, and I have stolen it for my own use. So thank you to the person that posted about this. I genuinely can't remember who it was, so if it was you, I'm really sorry. And that's the card. I've just stuck the card front onto the base, and this is our first design. So I did make 4 of these. They're all slightly different, as you can see, but they're all kind of a variation on the same design. So that's our first set of cards done. Now we're moving on to card layout number 2, and this time I've got a really, really thin strip of pattern paper here that I'm going to put on the front, and I'm going to cut quite a wide mat for this one because we're going to do something a little bit different with this. I'm just going to stamp out my sentiment that I'm going to use. I did it wrong the first time, so I had to do it again, but that's the great thing about making cards, is you can just flip the cardstock over and do it again, which is exactly what I did. And then I'm also going to stamp some images directly onto my card base. I'm just using dye ink here, so it's going to dry really, really quickly, so I'm not going to be worried about the bleed through or anything like that. I know that this cardstock is thick enough that the ink is not going to bleed through because I use it all the time. I'm using Memento ink in this video, which is one of my faves because it dries quickly, it's suitable for a lot of things, and I use it all the time. I'm going to stick my pattern paper onto this red strip, and then I'm actually going to tear down the sides. The best way to do this is to do like little tears rather than try and tear it all at once. I'm just going to go for like a really rough edged look on this. I think this looks really nice with the white core cardstock. I think it adds a little bit of something extra, and it's a great way to kind of show off white core cardstock if you have some in your stash. And I'm just going to cut a quick mat for my sentiment just to make it stand out a little bit more, and then I'm going to assemble all of these elements onto the front of the card. I'm going to add a little bit of cardstock underneath the sentiment just so it kind of doesn't have a bump on it, and then that's that one done as well. So this one is a pretty simple design, and you can use pattern paper for the background if you prefer. You can put the sentiment in a different place. Here are a few different examples. I made 6 of these in total on this kind of rough design idea, but as you can see, they're all different even though they use the same base design. Let's move on to the next design. So this time I'm going to be using this really jazzy pattern paper, and this is one of the simplest designs we're going to do in the whole video, so I hope you guys are ready. I've cut my 6x6 pattern paper into 4, so I've got 4 3" by 3" squares, and then I've cut some mats that are slightly larger than each of those, and I'm going to attach my pattern paper onto my mat, and then I'm going to attach that onto the front of my card, and then I'm going to stamp the sentiment underneath, and that is essentially this card. It's super simple, but if you've got really jazzy pattern paper that you really want to showcase, then this one's a really good one to do, especially if it's a paper that will look a bit weird if you cut it up, which I think like into really small pieces, which this bauble paper is going to look weird. So here are the cards I made with this design. Again, they're all different. I've used different pattern papers. It's good if you've only got smaller pieces left at the end of your paper pad, because you only need a 3" square, and you can do quite a lot of different variations on it. So I made a whole bunch of these, got a little bit carried away because it was so easy, just variating the sentiment. Next design we're going to do is with this nice presents paper. Now I really like this one, and I didn't want to cut it into a small piece, so I've used this as a whole panel on my card, and then I'm going to make my sentiment to go in the middle. I'm using some white cardstock for that, and I'm going to cut a red mat so it matches with the rest of the card, which also has a red mat on the outside. I'm going to stamp my sentiment in the middle of that white panel to start with, and then I'm going to decorate around it. So I'm going to put these 3 stockings at the top, stamped in green and red. I do like sometimes to just stamp freehand. You'll mostly see me use my stamp positioning tool in my videos, but sometimes I like just get a little bit crazy and use a block. It doesn't have to be perfect. So that's all my stamping done now, really quick and simple. And then I'm just going to mat this on the red cardstock and then assemble all my layers together, and that will be this card complete. Super easy, and again you can adapt this one and make a bunch of different versions. So as I've done here, this is the original one I made, and I've got this nice blue one which I really like, and then this one I just added a bow on the front, which I think is really sweet as well. So that's a lovely one to do. You can also cut a middle piece out of the panel if you want to be like really conservative with your paper, but this whole paper pad was £1, so I really didn't care. On to our next design. So this one is going to make a bunch of cards at once. So I've pulled out 4 different pattern papers, and this is going to make 4 cards. So we're not going to use the whole sheet for this one, but all this cutting is going to make 4. So I've cut my panel, and then I'm cutting my panel into 4 pieces. So it's going to look like this, as you can see. And then I'm going to cut the other 4 so they are exactly the same, and through the magical power of editing it's sped up to some ridiculous speed. I think this is 1500% speed, so we just whiz through it like that. And then I've got essentially enough here now to make 4 cards. So I've cut the mats that are slightly larger than each one. The maths for that gave me a headache, so please don't ask me what the measurements are. It's just an 1/8 of an inch larger than all of the small pieces. I've pulled out 4 different patterns and then paired them all up together, and then just before I assemble this last one, in case I mess it up, I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here. So I've gone for this nice big sentiment on this one, And then I've done all my mats, and I just need to attach it onto the front of the card, and then it's done. So yeah, I really like this one. I think it's really fun. I think I was inspired by a picture on Pinterest for this one. The only thing you have to remember with this is to cut your pattern paper so it's facing the right way. Obviously, if you have one with words or hearts or something that you want to make sure it's the right way up, you need to make sure that that is going to be facing the right way up when you finish cutting them out. These are the variations I made. Obviously, you can use a different card background. You can change the colours of the mats. You can put the sentiment in a different place. So this really doesn't have to be the same design each time. As you can see, all of those four look pretty different. Next design we're on to now, and I'm pulling out some of the more jazzy papers. I really got to like this paper pad as I was using, actually. I was quite into the patterns. So this one is quite similar to the last one we did, only this one's the pieces are going to be even smaller. So rather than using whole sheets like I did here, you're probably better off doing this design towards the end of a paper pad when you've only got small scraps left, because as you can see there, those are the sizes that you need, and they don't have to all be from the same piece either. I just did that because it was a little bit easier. So again, I've got 6 different papers here, and I've cut all the pieces the same, and then I'm going to mix them all up. So that's what it looks like when you've got all 6. I have tried to split up the colours so I don't have like a cream right next to another cream one, but that wasn't as simple as it sounded because there was quite a lot of cream going on. So I've just attached these to the front of my card, and then, oh no, this is actually a panel, so I've attached these to a card panel, and then I'm going to attach some twine around it just to give it a little bit of, you know, extra pizzazz and step it up a little bit. I'm just going to wrap this round 3 times over the top of my pattern paper, and I've obviously stamped my sentiment under there as well. And then because this cord is quite chunky, I put some craft foam behind the panel to raise it up off the card so it wasn't all bumpy. If you just use normal twine, you don't need to do this because it will sit nicely behind the card, but this cord's really, really chunky, so I had to do this. So, and that is this design. So I think I made 6 of these because I had enough pieces that I'd already cut out to make 6, and they are all slightly different. Some of them I used some flat ribbon instead, and I think one of them I added a bow. Yeah, there we go. And then one of them I just did on red. So again, even though they're the same design, they all look slightly different. Time for the next card now. This time we are using a full panel of pattern paper for the background, and then we're going to pop a red strip over the top of that. And then I'm going to cut myself a white strip to go in between. So we're using our red strip as a mat, and then I'm going to stamp all over this white strip. So I'm essentially making my own pattern paper for this one. I'm going to start with the sentiment because it's really difficult to fit the sentiment at the end. And then I'm going to start with the larger elements and fill in all the gaps. So I'm mixing up the red and the green here. I'm trying to make it look a little bit random. I end up stamping some of the presents upside down and having to do the bows upside down, which I would maybe not advise that you do that. Clearly I didn't know my stamp set very well and didn't know how it fit together, but never mind. I don't think anybody will notice on the final card. So your mistakes on your projects always look like glaringly obvious to you, but when somebody else looks at it, then honestly, they're never ever going to see it. And even if they are, they're not going to say anything. In my experience. So I'm just filling all the gaps on this, starting with the largest element and going down to the smallest ones. It does look a little bit chaotic by the time I finish, but you know what? I actually really like it, and I wouldn't call anything on here a mistake. I think, as Bob Ross would say, they're just happy accidents. So, you know, that's what crafting's all about, right? Happy accidents. So I've finished stamping all that now, so I just need to assemble it. I'm actually going to switch out the pattern paper I'm using because I just decided that the presents would fit better. So I've just got to assemble this piece on top of my card front and then attach my card front onto my card base, and that is that card complete. This one's fairly simple. Once you get past all the stamping, it's pretty straightforward. I actually made only one of those because I was too lazy to do the stamping all over again, so please forgive me. Now I'm running out of paper, so this is going to be one of the last designs we do. I've got some pieces that are not wide enough to be a full panel. So I'm doing this very clever trick, which I'm sure nobody has ever done before. That's me being sarcastic, by the way. Is that I'm cutting the larger panel in half and then covering the gap with a different pattern paper. So you don't need the full panel, but it looks like you've got a full panel on your card, if you understand what I mean. So the middle strip I'm going to matte on red just to make it look a little bit more finished and have a bit of definition between the colours, especially if there's two with like cream backgrounds. They kind of look a bit strange if you don't have that. So just going to attach that on top. And then all I need to do is add a sentiment. So I've got all these little scraps of card by this point, so I'm just trying to use them all up and quickly stamp out my sentiments and add them to mats as well. Again, just whacking it with my scissors and cutting it out. I don't always need to use a paper trimmer. So here's another little bow that I tied. I'm just going to attach that on there for, you know, a little bit of extra interest. And that's this one done. I made quite a lot of these because I had quite a lot of pieces of pattern paper left at the end that were perfect really for this design. I just kind of paired all of my larger pieces with my smaller pieces and decided which ones went together well and had enough contrast and just assembled them all. And I also had all kinds of weird sentiments left over at the end because I just stamped loads of them on some scrap pieces of cardstock I had left lying around on the desk. So you have all kinds of different ones here, all kinds of jazzy sentiments and like bits of random ribbon that were lying on the desk. So yeah, I do love using up bits that would just otherwise go in the bin. I'm a big fan of that, big fan of not wasting bits. And the last card I have is this one, which you can see used up the little bits of waste that I had, little strips left over. I'd only made one of those because that was all I had left. And that's it, my paper pad is done, so bye. All I've got left is these little strips. And yeah, maybe I could have got another card out of these. I have done some cards on my channel before, my 6x6 paper pad videos, where I've used up little strips like this. But this time I couldn't be bothered. I just want to show you that you could use these inside your card as well if you wanted to. If you really didn't want to throw them in the bin, you could decorate the inside of your card and just add the little strips in there just to jazz up the inside. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to recycle these. I think this £1 paper pad has given me 51 cards, and I think, to be honest, that is kind of impressive. I don't think it owes me anything at this point. So just to recap, these are all the cards we made in today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please let me know if you like this format, because this is a little bit different to the 6x6 paper pad videos that I've done before. Please let me know which you prefer. Do you prefer to see the whole process where I make every single card differently and show you every single card? Or would you like to see more a video like this where I show you how I plan it out and show you the idea and maybe like skip over a lot of the repetitive parts of the card making? Please let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know, and I'm planning on doing a lot more videos like this next year. If you want to see more Christmas card videos or more card making videos, please check out my channel because I have tons. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here on my channel again soon. Bye!